Yesterday, Seattle Times reporters Ryan Divish and Adam Jude released an article giving some clarity on the regional sports broadcast situation, essentially, for the Mariners and how it has affected ownership and the money that they've given to the front office. And by and large, the idea that this situation is handcuffing ownership and not allowing them to spend as much money as we think they all should is still bullcrap, because realistically they can spend the money. They are choosing not to make sure that they are profitable and remain very revenue driven. Now, I know that it can cause issues, and I'm not going to say that I am a great businessman, but if I was, an owner of the Seattle Mariners or part of that ownership group, I would probably want to care about the product that is being put on the field. And now that ownership group will have to care a lot more also about the product being put on to the broadcast, because Warner Brothers Discovery is withdrawing from all of its local sports television business, meaning any share that they had in Root Sports is now dissolved, and it goes to the other shareholders, which is, ironically enough, the Seattle Mariners. So the Mariners will be in charge of producing their own broadcasts next year, should they choose to go that route, and it is one of two options for them. It has been very difficult this offseason watching other teams kind of get to play in the fun game that is free agency. One of the more active ones was one that Colton had predicted during our free agency prediction stream to be relatively active. So let's take a look at some of the players he thought they would sign and just have a little fun.
Royals is where I think he's going to go. Again, another recoup contract or a recoup value sort of deal on a 2-year deal with them. They pay him for this year, his rehab year, and then they next year he can come back and maybe they can trade him at the deadline or what have you, depending on where the Royals are at next year. Of course, the AL Central is dog. So
Sean Bonea, anyways, 2 years, $22 million. Pirates, Rays, Dodgers. So
Royals.
So the Royals. What is this? What is this?
I think that it makes sense to go out there and get these guys who maybe can be really good at baseball.
Yeah,
maybe.
But why would the Royals be spending?
Why not?
I think the Tigers is my pick. I think Tigers make sense. No shot. You picked the Royals.
I picked the Royals.
Oh my God.
I'm kind of in on the Royals, bro.
For what?
I'm in on them. I'm in on them making some moves. That division is dog, bro.
And that's why the Tigers are going to go get him and make the rotation a bit better. So he's not exactly 100% accurate with his picks, but the general kind of trend of why he was having the Royals sign guys is seemingly adding up, because they've added Michael Wacha, they've added Hunter Renfroe, they added Seth Lugo. So although it's not Liam Hendriks, Sean Manaea, and Jack Flaherty, the Royals have been adding. And if I could travel back in time and tell myself before this offseason that the Royals would have spent more money on free agents than the Mariners by December 15th, I would have laughed at my future self, because that is just something that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And whether or not the Royals are having these issues with the local broadcast and the regional sports network, what have you, they might be. I'm not entirely sure on the status of every single major league team, but the fact that it's seemingly handcuffing the Mariners to the point where they do not feel comfortable spending any money whatsoever. And the offseason, we still got a while to go. It is only December 15th as I'm recording this. However, a lot of the signs are pointing that we won't be seeing a whole lot of spending regardless. And if that's seemingly what ownership wants to do, is ultimately just cut costs, trading Luis Castillo, even though he's on a relatively, I want to say team friendly, but as far as overall value, his contract's really good. Trading him instead of one of the younger guys like Wu or Miller, and that's what you have to do. That's why those rumors are starting to circulate. Trading Luis Castillo clears up $20 million. So I understand why those rumors and that conversation is starting. For me, that is just an extremely bad look on the team as a whole, and putting the blame on the front office for that, because they thought maybe they'd have a little bit more money to spend, and then extending Luis Castillo to that contract, it makes a lot of sense. And then you trade him the year after, that's just a terrible look, and it's showing the restraints that is being put on the front office by ownership at this point. These operational costs and these margins likely are pointing to about $25 million in total dollars spent on free agency this offseason, likely. And this does have a lot to do with what the ownership is trying to spin it as, is this hang up with the broadcast going into next year. It is a problem, and it's something that we as fans unfortunately have to be aware of, even though the ownership group probably should just kind of deal with it, because it's not our job to have to try and decipher what all this means and go into the semantics of what business is behind producing a Major League Baseball team. We as fans are just supposed to enjoy the team And it's been a very difficult offseason to do that with. And a lot of it is coming back to bite the ownership group and just general disdain from the fandom. Whether or not the Mariners ownership decides to follow through with this and foot the cost of having to produce their own product next year in terms of broadcasting the Mariners, I'm not really sure. The way that the article was being presented, it seemed like that was their more likely choice, because the other side is having the MLB produce it, which they've already done with the San Diego Padres, who lost their TV deal because Bally Sports is bankrupt, and a lot of different financial things that, again, we as fans don't necessarily want to have to think about. We just want to be able to turn on the game and watch the team play. And you want the best product on the field to do that, and sometimes you might have to spend a little bit of money to make that happen. And another team that had their TV deal stripped away, and I think it's also being run by the MLB at this point, is the Arizona Diamondbacks. And yes, they did just go to the World Series, but this is a team that only won 84 games last year, and I would say is in at least a similar market to the Seattle Mariners in terms of where they could be at as like a mid-market team. Obviously, there's like the higher levels like the Dodgers, the Yankees. The Diamondbacks have gone out and signed players. They've signed guys, and they signed Eduardo Rodriguez, and there's rumors that they're going to be in on JD Martinez or maybe even Justin Turner. And the fact that the Mariners, yes, we've been rumored with like Jorge Soler, but it hasn't, there's nothing really like pushing the needle. Nothing really big seemingly happening for the Mariners so far. And again, like I said, there's plenty of time to go, but if the Mariners ownership decides that maybe we don't want to have to produce the broadcast as well, passing it over to the MLB, I don't really know if that's a bad idea either. I mean, I think it would save them some money in general, but obviously allocated resources would have to go to the MLB as opposed to going to Warner Brothers Discovery. There's just a lot going on right now behind the scenes that will lay the groundwork for whether or not the Mariners do spend or if they kind of stay where they're at. And like I said, the first option, the Mariners, they could absorb the operational costs of producing the live games and maintain the status quo in 2024. This is directly quoting the article written by Ryan Divish and Adam Jude. The exact cost to produce games is not clear, but it would be a significant new investment. Short term, that is believed to be the Mariners' most likely decision, a source said. That is probably a big reason if they want to spin it that way. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm not saying you as fans should believe that was why we're not spending money in free agency, because the ownership group should have the money to do it. And if they don't, sell the team to a legitimate owner and ownership group that can fork over the money to put a good product of baseball on the field. But that's what they're telling us. And that is what, unfortunately, it has to be written about the Mariners at this point of time in the offseason, when Shohei Ohtani just signed for $700 million and Yoshinobu Yamamoto is on the precipice of signing a $300 million contract. It's just where we're at. And the second option, like I mentioned, for the MLB taking over the broadcasting rights, the Mariners could partner with Major League Baseball, which has been aggressively pursuing teams to join its newly formed broadcasting division. MLB took over the local broadcasts of the Diamondbacks and San Diego Padres midway through the 2023 season when those teams' RSNs, which is the regional sports network, deteriorated. Let me know what you guys think about this going forward and whether or not you even want to hear about it, because I know I don't anymore. I just want to see what the Mariners are going to do this offseason, and hopefully they add some legitimate talent to push this team over the edge, whether that is through free agency or maybe even through a trade by trading one of our young pitchers. And the Red Sox recently inquired about our pitching, and Colton made a video breaking down kind of just the Red Sox and Mariners as a fit in general. So go check out that video on the screen right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and go Mariners.